and welcome to this week's broadcast. I am Anne LaFollette, and I'm super excited to talk to you today about what I've been asking my creative community recently and the answers that I'm hearing back. I am hearing two common themes over and over again, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. The first being people wanting to start a creative business, and the second being that they dream of seeing their designs on fabric. So what I thought I would do is break this broadcast actually into a part 1 and a part 2, because what I'd like to cover over these 2 weeks are the 10 steps to start your creative business today. And since these 10 steps are fairly detailed, and I'm going to go into them in some level of detail, I'm going to give you the first 5 today and then the next 5 next week. How does that sound? Let's get started. So step number 1 is it's very important to zoom out and think strategically about what type of business you want to create. So if you fall into the category where you're telling me that you want to start a creative business, or you're actually in this bucket where you dream of seeing your designs on fabric, in both cases, it's really important to start with step number 1, which is to zoom out and think strategically about the type of business that you would like to create. The reason this is important is because you can't really start down the tactical steps of starting a business until you know what your end goal is, or at least you have an end goal in mind. So a couple of important questions to ask yourself in this step 1 process would be, what is the type of business that I want? What is my end goal? Is my end goal to turn my doodles into dollars? Is my end goal to actually expand an existing business that I already have? Or is my end goal wanting to start a creative business from scratch? So those are a couple of questions that hopefully will get your thought process going. And what I would say is you don't have to have everything figured out. It's just important to have a general direction, because that's going to really help you as you go through the next steps that I'm going to cover with you now. Your business will definitely evolve and change. My business certainly has. And I love to quote one of my mentors, Ryan Levesque, who says, "You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going." And I really embrace that philosophy. And so in step number 1, take some time to zoom out and think about what direction you want to go in, but don't get paralyzed by that. Pick something and then let's get started together. And then you can always pivot later as you learn more and more about what it is that you want to do and also who your customers are. Which leads me to step number 2. So step number 2 is setting up your business structure. And I am not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you any legal advice. However, I can send you to some very good resources where you can find out more about the 5 most common business structures. And that organization is actually the Small Business Organization. And I'll leave a clickable link down below this video so that you can click through to their website. And specifically, they have a whole section on how to get started in a business, how to get your business started. If you are really serious about setting up a creative business, you need to set up a structure. And there are 5 typical business structures. The first one is a sole proprietorship. That's a hard word for me to say. The second one is a limited liability company, otherwise known as an LLC. The next one is a corporation. You could also decide to create a nonprofit, and then you might also want to select a partnership. So those are the 5 most common business structures, and you can learn a lot more about them, what's involved, and some of the pros and cons around them by going to the Small Business Administration's website. Now, as I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you in my personal experience, I decided to set up a limited liability company, or an LLC. And the reason that I did that is because I wanted to separate my creative business and my entrepreneur business from my family's assets. And a limited liability corporation will allow you to do that. However, there are many advantages to doing a sole proprietorship, and this is another place where you can pick one of these, and then you can decide if you need to change the structure later. You can certainly do so. Step number 3 is a really critical step and one that you need to spend some time on, and that is identifying your ideal customer avatar. And that is frequently shortened to the initials ICA, which stand for Ideal Customer Avatar. So let's talk about that for a minute. What is your ideal customer avatar? As you start in business, you have to decide, well, who am I going to try to sell to? So I wanted to give you a couple of examples because depending on what you're thinking about, your customer, essentially the person who you want to serve and the person who eventually you want to have buy things from you, could be very, very different. So example number 1 is if you want to put your designs onto fabric, which is something that I hear over and over again, that you've been dreaming of putting your designs on fabric. So if that is what you would like to do, your ideal customer is actually fabric companies. And in order for you to be able to serve them and hopefully eventually have them buy from you, there are a variety of things that you're going to need to do. The most important of which is to build a portfolio of work, showcase that work in a beautiful way, make sure it shows your skills, your talents, and your uniqueness. And then once you have that as a real asset that you can show to companies, you are then going to want to investigate trade shows to go to learn a lot about the fabric world and specifically companies that you think might be a good fit for your type of designs. And then after that, you're also going to need to figure out how to reach out to art directors and how to get your portfolio in their hands and get them interested in potentially developing a licensing agreement with you. So there are many, many steps involved, but I'm using this example because many of you say that when I ask you, you say, I've always dreamed of putting my designs on fabric. And so that then fabric companies would be your ideal customer avatar. Now let's take a different example. Many of you also tell me that you would love to learn how to turn your doodles into dollars. So in order to do that, you have to learn how to do it. And so I highly recommend that you sign up for my Turn Your Doodles into Dollars workshop. It's a free live workshop that starts on January 9th, and enrollment is open right now. So I will put a link below the video so that you can sign up for it. And as soon as you sign up, you will get a downloadable schedule that has all the dates on it and further details. The most important thing about it is that in it, I will show you step by step through live demonstrations how to turn your doodles into what's called a repeating pattern inside Adobe Illustrator. And once you've created one pattern that you know how to make successfully, the sky's the limit. And then what I recommend that you do is go check out print-on-demand sites like Society6. There are many of them there, but the great thing about them is if you go check them out, there's a link below to my Society6 shop. You can see the tons and tons of different products that you can put your designs on. And so that is the way, one of the ways, although there are many, many more, that is one of the ways for you to sell your products. So the first step in the process is to learn how to do it. So please sign up for my free live workshop. It starts on January 9th. It's a blast. And literally, I will show you step by step how to do it so that you have that valuable skill by the end of the workshop. Now, if you fall into the category, I wanted to use a final example. If you fall into the category of either having an existing business and wanting to expand that business, I would love to talk to you a little bit about Heather Lowry. Heather Lowry is one of my students, and she is a very, very accomplished woodblock printer. I wrote a blog post about her several months ago, and I'll put a link to that below the video as well, so you can learn a lot more about her. But the most important part of this story is that she's a very successful woodblock printer, and when she started to, when she found me and also started to learn about surface pattern design, which is the technical term for turning your doodles into dollars or into repeating patterns, she realized that she could take her beautiful woodblock prints and actually turn that artwork into repeating patterns and then put that artwork onto a whole bunch of other products that could vastly extend her and expand her Etsy shop and the way in which she makes money. So those are 3 examples of how important it is to sort of figure out both what type of business you want to be in and then who your ultimate customer is as a result of going through that thought process. So step number 4 is starting to move us together into the implementation and sort of tactical phase of starting to build a business. And step number 4 is the importance and how to build your email list. Now, many people think that having an email list is not important because we all personally feel like we have way too many emails that we get. However, over and over and over again, people who are successful selling products, especially in the online world, they do it primarily because they have an email list, and they have an email list of very engaged people who love what they do, who love hearing from them, who feel connected to them, and then want to support them by buying their products. And we all start with 0 people on our list. So don't be intimidated by the fact that you don't have an email list. You will be able to build one. I like to use myself as an example because about 18 months ago, I think I had 25 people on my email list. 3 of them were me, myself, and I, because I had 3 different email lists personally. And then I think another 17 people were my relatives because I have a very, very large family. And so in total, maybe there were 5 people I didn't know who were on my list. And so here is what I did, and here's what I highly recommend that you do. Amy Porterfield is the guru in the space of building your email list and then also actually selling online courses, which is a totally separate topic. But what I highly recommend and what I personally did is I signed up for her free masterclass, and I'll put a link below the video so you can go check that out as well. And I took a free masterclass which teaches you the basics of getting started to build your email list. And then I am very much of a step-by-step teacher as well as a step-by-step student. So I purchased her course that's called the List Builder Society, and I followed it to the letter. I did everything that she said to do in that program, and now I have over 10,000 people on my email list. Now that may sound crazy, and sometimes I do think it feels really crazy, but I build my email list every single day. I do that through my blog posts that have an embedded downloadable cheat sheet for you in them. I love to provide additional free guides or a free ebook or, for example, drawing guides, which I've done recently. And all of those are email list builders, which allow me to give you something valuable, and in exchange, you give me something very valuable, which is your email. So I highly recommend that you take that approach. It's definitely one of the critical steps to take when you want to build a creative business. And so that's step number 4. Step number 5 is all about opt-ins and lead magnets. And if you've never heard those terms before, do not worry. I had never heard about them before, but they're actually super easy to explain. An opt-in is essentially when I am going to offer you a free ebook. You have to opt in and give me your email in order to get it. And so it's also sometimes called a lead magnet because it's the magnet essentially is my free ebook or my top 10 tips to getting started in surface pattern design, or it's my drawing guides, and that's a magnet that's attracting you, and then you become a lead for me once you give me your email address. I think that the most important thing to consider around lead magnets and opt-ins is that you want to be providing value to your customers. And so when we talked a little bit earlier in step number 3 about, well, who is your customer? You have to really make sure you've identified like who you're going after, who you want to attract into your community, how you can then serve them and provide them with a lot of value so that they then eventually might be interested in buying something from you. The most important thing is not the money. The most important thing is how do you want to make an impact? How do you want to impact their particular life? How do you want to help them make progress in what it is that they are struggling with, so that in return, if you have something of value that you want to offer them, they're going to be interested in it and they're going to want to join your community. So those are the first 5 steps in this 10-step process. And I can't wait to see you next week to share the next 5. I also wanted to let you know that I am building a downloadable cheat sheet for you so that this will all be easy for you to access, and that will be available as a download when I am live next week. As I always like to say in closing, I am Ann LaFollette, and it's never too late to create. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell so that when I have a new YouTube video, you get notified. And I will see you all again next week. Bye for now.